The Anderson family was well known in their town. People admired them because they seemed successful. At family gatherings, conversations often revolved around expensive cars, large houses, successful businesses, important jobs, and impressive achievements. Among the younger member of the family was a quiet young man named Ethan. Ethan was different from his relatives. He didn't like showing off. He really talked about money. He didn't post pictures of expensive things, and whatever someone asked him what he was doing with his life, his answer was always simple. I'm working on a few things. His older brother Daniel was a successful businessman. His cousin Ryan worked for a large company and often talked about his career. Another cousin Alex had already recently bought an expensive car. At family gatherings and dinners, everyone seemed to have something impressive to announce. Everyone except Ethan. One evening, the entire family gathered at their grandfather's house. The dining room was filled with the laughter. Daniel was talking about a new business project. Ryan was discussing a promotion he expected to receive. Alex was showing photographs of his new cars. Ethan talked quietly at the end of the table. His grandfather William looked at him. Ethan, what about you? Everyone became quiet for a moment. Ethan smiled. I'm still working. Daniel laughed. You always say that. A few people chuckled. Ethan simply smiled. He didn't argue. He didn't defend himself. He knew something they didn't. He was building a future that couldn't be seen yet. Ethan had grown up watching his family measure success by appearances. If someone bought a new car, they were successful. If someone moved into a large house, they were successful. If someone had an impressive job title, they were successful. Ethan believed differently. He thought real wealth wasn't about looking rich, it was about creating something valuable. His father had taught him that lesson when he was young. Never spend your life trying to convince people that you are successful. His father had once told him, build something meaningful and you won't need to explain yourself. Ethan remembered those words. After finishing school, he decided not to follow the same path as everyone else. Instead of immediately searching for a prestigious job, he began learning valuable skills. He studied business, he learned technology, he read about investing, he learned about marketing, he studied how successful companies worked. Most importantly, he learned how to solve problems. His friends spent their evenings having fun. Ethan one often spent his evening learning, but he didn't tell anyone. Whenever relatives asked him about his plans, he simply said, I'm figuring things out. They assumed he was lost. He wasn't. He was preparing. One raining afternoon, Ethan noticed something in his town. Small business in his town was struggling to attract customers. Many shop owners had excellent products but almost no online presence. Ethan saw an opportunity. He approached a small bakery owned by an elderly man named Mr. Harris. Would you like more customers? Ethan asked. Mr. Harris smiled. Of course. I think I can help you. The old man looked doubtful. How much will it cost? Nothing at first. Ethan created a simple online page for a bakery. He photographed the products. He organized the menu. He helped the owner make it easier for customers to place orders. Within a few weeks, the bakery began receiving more orders. Mr. Harris was amazed. You did all this. Ethan nodded. The old man offered him some money. Ethan initially refused, but Mr. Harris insisted, take it. You created value. That small payment wasn't important because of its size. It was important because Ethan has discovered something. People were willing to pay him for solving problems, so he found another small business, then another, then another. Slowly, his little project became a small service business. Months passed. Ethan worked quietly. He worked early, he studied, he worked with clients, he improved his skills, he saved most of what he earned. He reinvested some of his money into his business. Meanwhile, his family believed he was struggling. At another family gathering, Daniel asked, so, Ethan, are you still doing that little online work? Yes. Is it actually making money? A little. Daniel smiled. You should get a proper job. Ethan nodded, maybe. He didn't explain. There was no point. He knew that people rarely understand a seed while it's underground. They only notice the tree after it grows. One day, a medium sized company contacted Ethan. They had seen his work with several small businesses. They wanted him to build a complete digital system for their company. It was the biggest project he had ever received. Ethan worked for months. There were mistakes, there were problems. There were days when he wondered whether he could finish, but he continued. When the project was finally completed, the company was extremely satisfied. They offered him another contract, then another. Soon other companies began hearing about his work. Ethan hired 2 people to help him, then 5, then 10. His small room became an office. His office became a company, and his company began working with clients from different cities. Eventually, international clients contacted him. Money started coming in faster than before. But Ethan's lifestyle barely changed. He still lived simply, he still drove an ordinary car, he still ate the same small restaurant, he still wore simple clothes. His relatives had no ideas what was happening. At the next family gathering, the conversation once again turned toward money. Daniel proudly announced that he had purchased another property. Everyone congratulated him. Ryan talked about his career. Alex discussed his new business ideas. Then someone looked at Ethan and you. Ethan smiled. Things are going well. Daniel laughed. You always say that. Ethan didn't respond. His mother noticed his expression. She knew her son was working hard. But even she didn't know the full size of his company. Ethan had never told her. Not because he wanted to hide his success from her, he simply didn't feel the need to announce it. Ethan understood the earning. Money was only the beginning. He wanted his money to create more value. So he began learning about responsible investing. He studied businesses. He researched different industries. He avoided schemes that promised instant wealth. He made mistakes. Some investments performed poorly, others succeed. Over time, he became better at making decisions. His company continued growing. Instead of spending everything he earned, he saved and reinvested carefully. Years passed. Ethan's wealth quietly increased. Millions of people knew the names of famous billionaires, but almost nobody outside his business world knew Ethan. And that was exactly how he preferred it. Daniel's business began experience serious difficulties. A major deal failed, expenses accumulated, bills continued arriving. Daniel became stressed. For the first time, the family saw him without his usual confidence. At dinner, nobody joked. Everyone was worried. Grandfather William asked, How serious is it? Daniel looked down, very serious. The family tried to help, but nobody had enough money to solve the entire problem. Ethan listened quietly. Finally, he said, I may be able to help. Everyone looked at him. Daniel frowned. How? I'll take care of the immediate problem. How much can you arrange? Ethan mentioned an amount. The room became silent. It was far more than anyone expected him to have. Daniel stared at him. Ethan, where did you get that kind of money? Ethan simply answered, From the work I've been doing. That evening, Daniel's curiosity became impossible to ignore. He asked Ethan to meet him privately. Tell me honestly, Daniel said, what exactly have you been doing all these years? Ethan opened his laptop. He showed him the company, the offices, the employees, the international clients, the projects, the investments. Daniel stared at the screen. He couldn't believe it. How big is your company? Ethan explained. Daniel was speechless. Then he asked the question that changed everything. How much are you worth? Ethan hesitated. He didn't like discussing personal wealth, but eventually he answered. Daniel's eyes winded. You're worth more than all of us combined. Ethan smiled. I never wanted to compete with anyone. Daniel lowered his head. For years he had thought Ethan was the least successful person in the family. Now he realized he had been completely wrong. The truth eventually reached the entire family. At the next family gathering, the atmosphere was different. Nobody laughed at Ethan. Nobody asked whether he was still doing that little online work. Everyone wanted to know about his business. His cousins asked questions, his uncles congratulated him. Even people who had once ignored him suddenly wanted his attention. Ethan noticed the change, but it didn't make him angry. Instead, it taught him something people often judge what they can see. They cannot see years of preparation. They cannot see rejected ideas. They cannot see failures. They cannot see the long hours of learning. Ethan visited his grandfather one day on an afternoon. William was sitting in the garden. I heard everything, the old man said. Ethan smiled. I didn't want it to become a big thing. His grandfather laughed slowly. Success becomes loud when people need others to notice it. Ethan sat beside him. Then what is real wealth? William looked at the trees. Real wealth is having enough freedom to live according to your values. He paused. Money is useful, Ethan, but money alone doesn't make a person wealthy. Ethan nodded. His grandfather continued. If you have money but no peace, you are poor in a different way. Ethan remembered those words for the rest of his life. Ethan's greatest achievement wasn't his bank account, it was the life he had built. He had created jobs, he had helped small businesses grow, he supported educational projects, he helped his parents live comfortably, he helped Daniel recover from his business difficulties, but he never made people feel that they owned him. When someone thanked him, he simply said, use the opportunity well. His wealth became a tool instead of an identity. One day, Alex approached Ethan. I want to become rich like you. Ethan smiled. Why? Because you have everything. Ethan shook his head. You only see the result. Then tell me the secret. There is no secret. Then what should I do? Ethan thought for a moment. Learn something valuable. Alex nodded. Then become excellent at it. Then use it to solve real problems. And after that, keep doing it. Alex looked disappointed. That's it? Ethan laughed. That's it. But doesn't it take years? Yes. I wanted something faster. Ethan smiled. That's why most people never become successful. Years later, at the family gathering, this time, the younger children were asking questions about careers. One child asked Ethan, what is the most important thing you learned? Ethan thought carefully. I learned that you don't have to announce every step of your journey. Everyone listened. You can work quietly. You can fail quietly. You can learn quietly. You can improve quietly. And one day, your result will speak for you. The room became silent. Ethan looked around at his family. I wasn't trying to become the wealthiest person in the family. His grandfather smiled. I was simply trying to become useful. Ethan eventually became one of the wealthiest people in his extended family, but he never introduced himself that way. He never entered a room expecting special treatment. He never used money to make others feel small. He remembered the years when people underestimated him. And instead of becoming arrogant, he became more understanding. He realized that everyone was fighting a battle that could not always be seen. Some people were building careers, some were raising families, some were recovering from failures, some were simply trying to discover what they were good at. Success had taught Ethan patience, wealth had taught him responsibility, and his quiet years had taught him humility. One evening, Ethan sat with his grandfather. The old man was much older now. Ethan, he said, do you remember when everyone thought you were unsuccessful? Ethan laughed. Yes. What did you feel back then? Ethan replied, sometimes I felt misunderstood. Did you ever want to prove them wrong? Ethan thought about it sometimes. And why didn't you? Because providing people wrong wasn't my goal. His grandfather smiled. What was your goal? Ethan looked toward the sunset to build a life I could be proud of. His grandfather nodded. This is why you succeed. Ethan's story became an example for the younger members of the family, not because he became wealthy, but because he became wealthy, without allowing wealth to change who he was. He taught them that success doesn't always arrive with applause. Sometimes it begins in silence. Sometimes nobody believes in you. Sometimes your family doesn't understand your dreams. Sometimes your friends move ahead while you feel stuck. But progress doesn't need an audience. A seed grows underground before anyone sees a tree. The same can be true of a person's success. For years, Ethan had looked ordinary, but beneath the ordinary experience was discipline, patience, learning, failure, courage, and consistency. He had been building quietly, and when the results finally appeared, they were impossible to ignore. At the final family gathering of the year, Ethan sat at the same end of the table where he had sat many years before. The conversations were different now. People rejected his opinions. Younger relatives asked him for advice. His brothers trusted him. His parents were proud. But Ethan remained the same. He listened more than he spoke. He smiled when others celebrated their achievements. He congratulated people sincerely. Nobody would have guessed that the quiet man sitting at the end of the table had become the wealthiest person in the family. And perhaps that was the greatest lesson of all. You don't have to look wealthy to be wealthy. You don't have to sound successful to be successful. You don't have to tell everyone what you're building. Sometimes the strongest response to doubt is not an argument, it is consistency. Keep learning, keep working, improving, building. Let time reveal what you have been creating. Because while everyone else is watching the surface, you may be quietly building something extraordinary underneath. At one day, without announcing it, without posting it, and without asking anyone to believe in you, the results will speak for themselves.